today, because today is our early literacy strand. So this thing over to the bottom right of your screen, and depending on where you have the blocks that include my face right now, whether it's at the bottom or on the side of your screen, it may or may not be slightly obstructed, but you'll see a square that says the Better Alphabet Song. What that really is it's the first step to cheating the brain. And that's what we're going to look at today, is accessing earlier developing, already primed pathways that will take us where we need to go and where we're trying to get when it comes to these letter sound skills that all lead toward kids accessing the code. So this Better Alphabet Song is the first step in kind of moving in that direction. And we're actually going to lean toward getting kind of a full understanding of that today. I'm going to show you some things that I don't normally get to talk about in session, because tomorrow's session, which is a little bit broader, we're going to take it further. And I will make reference to this Better Alphabet, but I won't be hitting that bottom piece. Because this is early literacy specifically today, I'm going to really explore this beginning piece, which I think is going to be incredibly helpful for you if you pair what we do today with what we're going to do tomorrow, because we're going to really pick up where we left off then. So for right now, this Better Alphabet is where I'm going to say I want to start, but I'm going to have to kind of move to it. So I'm going to show you how we're going to get there. First of all, I just want to really lay out that if you think about what we do and how we do it when it comes to the brain and how we teach kids to read, there's a huge divide. It's almost like we're running in this direction, even though we're trying to get over there. So we're running often in the opposite direction of where we're really trying to go. And it all starts with the ABCs. Now, because this is the early literacy strand, and so most of the viewers for today are possibly the pre-K and the kindergarten. I say possibly because I know a lot of folks signed up and are watching both days, even though they might be teaching second grade or, you know, remedial intermediate grades or work with ELL learners. Anybody that really has to access the code from the bottom up, which is all of us when we're learning how to read. But with, you know, ELL learners or kids that have specific learning blocks, it can feel like they're really starting over, starting from scratch. And if you are not in an early grade, which is certainly would be the minority today, but if you were not in an early grade, but you have learners with gaping holes in skill ability, oftentimes it feels as though you do have to start over because they don't have that base that you're trying to build on to access your curriculum. But for our purposes today, most of us are in the boat of just trying to tackle the piece that sits on our plate, which are the ABCs, the individual letter sounds. You may not have lofty ideas about getting them to read yet, but certainly that's the goal of the game. The only reason we care what a B says or a K says, or that C has two sounds, and S, is because all of those things come into play to arm you as a reader, as a writer. We're just tackling it from the bare bones base beginning. But I think sometimes because we are so far away from this end result, which is becoming a reader or a writer in terms of the students becoming readers and writers, we sometimes lose sight of the bigger picture and we focus like a laser on these things called letters and sounds. And sometimes maybe don't always think about why or for what or how it's actually going to come into what it's all about, what it's for, where it goes. So to make that point a little bit clearer, I'm just going to point out some elephants in the room. I bet if you work with kids that are learning the alphabet, you tell them things like, Y says yo, yo, y, y, y. Now that's great, except that every time they actually see a Y, it's almost never going to say yeah, especially if after your alphabet song, which if you teach it in, you know, kindergarten, pre-K, you're probably singing that song every morning. And then you're probably, I'm going to use my special ESP powers here, you're probably marching over to your calendar shortly thereafter. And when you march over to your calendar and you show them words on it, like today, Sunday, Monday, July, February, May, you're going to see that Y all over that calendar, except it's never actually going to make the one sound that 5 minutes ago on the alphabet chart, when we sang our song, we said to expect. As a matter of fact, what it's going to do is it could say E, it could say A, it could say I. In the word boy, which of course girls and boys need to know that to get in the right bathroom, it's going to say oi. Every big book is by a certain author. Every time kids turn around, it seems like that Y is doing something totally different. It can literally seem as though it's doing whatever it wants in every word. But because the brain is a pattern-making machine, The only thing that your brain can really hang its hat on and be pretty sure about when it comes to the letter Y is it won't say yeah. That's pretty much all you can kind of bet your money on. Is I don't know what the Y will do, but the one thing I know for sure it never does is say yeah. Because unless the words yellow, yes, you, or yak, good luck in an early grade print-rich classroom finding the Y, making the one sound that we work so hard to get kids to say on our little letter sound assessment when we point to the Y that's in the square and they're supposed to say yeah. Well, it might work in that little square, but it's not going to work in real world text because positional sounds of Y phonics rule is actually not taught until the second grade toward the end of the year, mid to end, based on a typical scope and sequence. And of course, that's a real problem when you're constantly bombarded with seeing something not do what it should more than seeing what it is supposed to do. The letter T, we tell kids, T says turtle, and then it never does, almost ever, because every time you see the letter that looks like this, the T, which is all kids really know at the beginning, is there's a letter, it looks like this, she said go to, every time I see it. Well, if you do, you'll almost be wrong 99% of the time because almost every single book, every single page, every single sentence, almost every third or fourth word has the letter that looks like this in it, but it's with an H. And when it's with an H, it's a digraph, and together those two letters say, but kids don't know what a digraph is when they're in pre-K, when they're in kindergarten. They don't know that there is anything other than a letter that looks like this that they go t for, and it doesn't work. So all of this might seem from where you're sitting and your perspective as an early beginning grade level teacher as something that's not like on your plate to worry about because you're just supposed to teach just these things. But the problem is these letters and sounds, in order to reinforce what we're working so hard to teach, we're not getting help from text because text has letters coming together. And when letters come together, they behave often like kids do when they come together, which is not always the way they should. You know, letters behave so well when they can't get a hold of each other and they're spread apart by like 2 inches, 3 inches between them. Then they do just what they should, abacad, efagad, up on your alphabet train, because they can't reach each other. But in real text, in real words, letters come together, and when they do, different sounds come out. And that's what we're exploring all day. We're exploring text. Even in pre-K, you're reading and you're writing all day long. Even if the kids aren't independently reading and writing, you're engaging and interacting with text. And it's not making your job easy in terms of reinforcing things that almost seem to be constantly unreinforced every time you turn around and look at an actual word. So that's where we're headed, is looking at where all this goes to and how to really fast track these individual letter sounds and then open up the rest of the alphabet, not looking at things so linearly, but let's look at things in a fluid way and using the brain science to do it. So we're going to look at how we can actually use brain science, specific pieces of information that go to early brain development, what we know about the brain, what areas are open and ready for business, what areas for early grade learners are kind of blockaded to our efforts as teachers. What are some tricks to work around areas of weakness, tap into areas of strength? All of those are tools that we can use in our kind of arsenal of weaponry to just get around hurdles and landmines that you would normally have in your path almost every single day when you're teaching at the beginning grade levels this thing called the code. Unfortunately, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but pre-K and kinder and first grade, we really have the shortest end of the stick because the sounds that the letters are actually be least likely to make in text are the ones we have to teach, which are those individual letters and sounds. So it does make it really tricky if we haven't yet kind of shifted our thinking. And that's hopefully what I will accomplish today, is shifting your paradigm, your perspective on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we can do it better, stronger, faster, using what we know about the brain and how we can teach kids to read. So backdoor for learning is almost literal in that the brain develops back to front. When we look at the brain development and we know that our earliest areas of access or readiness or awareness, and this is figurative because it's not really our earliest, but in the mid-rear part of the brain is the social and emotional systems. The higher level processing center, the analytical problem solving area of the brain, that's far much later to develop, going up into the early 20s for development at the level that it functions with optimal ability. And for us at the earliest grade levels, we don't have kids that even have necessarily made advances toward that. So when we talk about letters and sounds, we are traditionally targeting those to those higher level executive processing centers. It's a symbol. It looks like this is an A. We call it an A. This is what the A looks like. It's a circle with a stick. The sound that it makes is ah, ah, ah. We can segment that sound from the word apple. All of those things require not just foundational experience and understanding, but they also require abstract thinking. And of course, we know that when we work with these little guys who are eating their shoe and licking the carpet, they're concrete thinkers. They don't have abstract thinking capability necessarily. Some might, but it's a reliability issue. The developmental readiness is so extremely varied from one learner to the next. And and obviously I'm preaching to the choir here, because if you work with early grade learners, you know that you don't have any expectations. It could be an amazing surprise with regard to what kids can do, some kids, and then mind-boggling what other kids aren't seemingly able to do in terms of, following maybe a basic direction or running your class without you. They span the gamut. So when we know that we have that variation, we're looking for the most reliable door in. How do we get where we need to go? What's the most reliable universally? What's the common denominator that we can kind of tap into that would most likely hit all of our kids, regardless of where they are developmentally? And that's the social emotional learning systems. Those areas I like to call them their tattling centers, because every kid is great at tattling. They all knew who the line leader is, who the line leader was, who got fired from being the line leader, who's never allowed to be the line leader again, who can't have a peanut, who's not allowed to be a runner. It's unbelievable the amount of information and the degree of detail that they can store and retrieve, and then even hypothesize on what they would do and who they think should get to be the line leader and who should never get to be the line leader. They have such high level expert capability when it comes to manipulating information that is in this mid-rear portion of the brain, which is this social emotional area of processing, the feeling networks. Again, what I like to call them are the tattling centers. Even in pre-K, kids know how it feels when no one will play with them. They all know that they want to run to the door to be at the front of the line because they feel like that's the best place to be. So they're constantly aware and making decisions that are coming from that framework, which is highly developed across the board in most learners, which means it's our reliable path in. Now, having said that, one way to access those feeling networks, those social emotional connections, and by social, emotional is kind of self-explanatory. Social means my response to others, how I feel about social feedback coming my way. If kids aren't being nice to me, if they don't answer me when I, suggest a game to play, if they're on the playground and I'm not included, those are, it's linked. We call it social emotional. We normally think of that for a different purpose, but we are using this as kind of a gateway in. But social emotional, things that make kids think and feel about the experiences that they're having as they interact with others. So one thing that will trigger kids' emotional interest or social interest is secret, when something's a secret. One thing about secrets that's really important to think about, and I'm noticing my bar is blocking some words at the bottom that are really important. So if your bar is as well, and I would tell you to move it, I'm going to just minimize mine. And once I do that, that may be a problem because I don't know how to get it back. But I'm going to minimize it. I suggest you minimize yours as well. Well, no, you can't minimize yours because you won't see me. So don't minimize yours. Open yours back up or split screen it. It says at the bottom of the screen, in case you can't see it, that secrets make things important to kids. This is true. Secrets do make things important to kids, but secrets actually make things important to all of us, because part of tapping into social emotional understanding is the social awareness that if something is a secret, we're not supposed to have it. And we all want what we're not supposed to have. The more scarce something is, the more you have a need to obtain it. So it's actually a much more deep-seated understanding, and it is coming from this social realm. So when we make something a secret, there are deeper, more meaningful reasons that kids tune in. It's not just a gimmicky thing. Secrets really do capture the attention of kids, and actually all of us, because of that idea of when there's less of something, that's what gives it a higher value. So when you tell kids that there are secrets, grown up reading and writing secrets that explain why letters do what they do, then now when you're talking about letters, you're not just talking about these things, these weird circles and sticks that nobody even knows what they're for and I can't do anything with them anyway. It's not this random isolated group of skills. Instead, it becomes something that they're personally connected to, that they are personally able to relate to, and because they want it, this will start the ball rolling in them driving their own instruction, which is really, you'll see, going to become the key to everything. Now, one of the things that you also want to keep in mind when we talk about secrets, and I kind of threw this out a little bit, but secrets trigger the need to know. So when I mentioned that what's really key is that kids are going to be driving their own learning, that's going to happen because when you have a secret, that's something you're not supposed to get. You're not supposed to have it. That's why it's secret, which means I really want to know it now. So it's as if you're putting a catcher's mitt in place for what you're about to share. And that catcher's mitt is key. What that catcher's mitt is, that need to know, that I want to hear it, I want to know what it is. What that is it's a connection that you've already fostered in the brain before there's any place to really store this information. If you just toss out something, or a letter sound, a number skill, if you toss out information that nobody wants, nobody cares about, and nobody knows what you're talking about, it's like throwing a ball to an empty field. You might get lucky and hit a kid on the back by accident as he's walking by, but the odds that he's going to catch it, hold it, keep it, and be able to retrieve it when he needs it are slim. If, however, you can give it a file folder to live in, give it a connection to sync with, give it a place to live, it's a secret. It can be as simple as that. They don't have to have an intellectual understanding of why this is important as letters and sounds go. You can trigger this heightened state of alert. And that's another real key piece when we're looking at the brain science and how this can help us, these pieces that we know to make the learning go easier. When kids have a need to know, the information that you're giving at that time is marked for memory and prioritized learning in the brain. I'm going to say that again. It's marked for memory and prioritized learning in the brain. Why? Because I want it. I want to know what it is. It's important. It gets higher priority. It's not just you talking and I'm half listening. It's, oh, she's going to tell me something I really want to hear. It's that slight pulse rate, adrenaline rise, heartbeat increase. Those are things that actually work on a physiological level to stamp it, mark it, or keep it in a more primary place that's ready to share it back. So you're just kind of giving the edge to kids to really hold on to some things that otherwise would go right past them, or that developmentally they may not be ready for. Now, this is the other half of the coin. Developmentally, they have to be ready for it, which means when you get their attention, if you toss something out like Pythagorean's theorem, it's irrelevant. Yes, you got their attention, but what are they supposed to do with something they have no ability to understand or connect with? And there's the fun. Here's the next part. I am gonna let this little girl tell you a secret. It is a secret about a second grade phonics skill. Now, depending on what your reading series is, and I look at reading series like playgrounds, they tell us where we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, and then they give us some things that we can use to play with it. What they don't do is give us the muscles we need to actually play with it. Meaning, reading series give you ample opportunity to read, but they don't teach you how to read. Case in point, ER, IR, UR on a scope and sequence is typically introduced as R-controlled vowels somewhere in first or second grade. If it's first, it's usually at the end of the year. If it's second, it's usually toward the beginning. Now, that's way too late if kids in kindergarten and first grade have to read the word her and were and turn, which they do. But they're not going to get the code they need to read it until 2 years later, which is just bizarre. Now, having said that, our controlled vowel skill is completely not appropriate or developmentally going to sink in with your average pre-K, kindergarten, or first grade, but this will.
Hi kids, do you want to know about the secrets about these? So ER, IR, UR, when they get together, they hop in their cars, they drive crazy, and they say, yeah. So what they do, driving their cars crazy. But when you grow up, you don't do that. Okay?
I love that. I love that. Now, this was a little girl in her first week of kindergarten, and her mom came home from a workshop like this, a conference, and was telling dad at the dinner table about what she learned at the conference. And one of the things she told him was, and you'll have this, by the way, to download. She said, well, like, for instance, like how we could teach like ER, IR, UR, like, like a letter sound, like that they're terrible drivers and they go, and so that's why they make the sound they do in the word turn or bird or her. So the little girl just overheard her mom talking about it, and she went out in the other room when mom was doing the dishes, and she was playing with her pre-K sister, first week of kindergarten, and her mom heard all this noise in the other room, and she went in the other room, and she saw this. This is what she found. So she grabbed it on her phone, and then she tweeted it, and she tagged me in it, which is how I came across it. But this is really where things become powerful, because we're not teaching, we're giving. This isn't teaching her something new. This is something she already knows. Stories are easy for kids to remember because they're how kids remember. But not any stories, stories that they live and breathe every day, stories that are part of their already existing social, emotional experience and understanding. She's been in a car. She knows what happens when you break it and go, "Arr!" Now, what's interesting, though, is what she says at the end, because she says she threw in a little public service announcement that had nothing to do with anything that I had shared with mom or that mom had shared with her. She said, but when you grow up, you don't do that. This shows you where this lives in her brain. It doesn't live as an R-controlled vowel phonics skill. It's not even, I don't even know if she understands what she could do with it yet. It's a key to a door she maybe hasn't even tried to unlock, which is fine. But she's able to hold this, share it, and make it her own because she's clearly she has a good understanding of the dangers that can occur when you're driving irresponsibly. My guess is she's had a few lectures, or not herself, but maybe an older brother's had some lectures on safe driving. Maybe dad doesn't drive real well when he's out and about and speeds. I don't know. But she's got some deeply rooted connections when it comes to this understanding of in a car and it being related now to those letters. That's really going to be pivotal for us as teachers because those are connections now we don't have to work to make. Meaning it's already hers for whatever she might need it for. We can now just start using it. We don't have to spend our time practicing a skill. We're not teaching her something she doesn't already know. We're just gluing something new to something she's already got deep understanding and ownership of. And that depth of understanding comes from pre-existing anchors that are social and emotional in nature. They were built long before we got there. They're already there. They're like super highways that are just waiting for us to jump on and travel with. And why build new roads if we can access existing ones? Now, through those existing pathways, we will be building new roads because she'll be able to then take this and start seeing it in words. Now, I will say that ideally, you know, in a classroom, you're modeling the heck out of this. Every time you toss out a piece of the code, whether it be the letter B that says B, or whether it's with ER or UR, you're modeling how handy this key is to unlock this door and this door and this door. So if you see a word like her, that's a great opportunity to show them, remember that secret that's in that word? There's a secret in that word. Now, the Better Alphabet song is going to fast track individual letter sounds. And those are key. You don't get a lot of bang for your buck with them because if all you know are those, the word her is ha-e-ra, and that doesn't help. Turn is ta-ra-na, and that doesn't help. Secrets by themselves aren't actually much use either. Secrets are what letters do when they come together and don't do what they should. But if all you know is with, you know, ER, IR, UR, you can't read the word her if you don't know the H that goes with it. So it takes two to tango. What really powers up the individual letter sounds is also knowing what letters do when they come together. And what really powers up phonics skills or patterns, which are what letters do when they come together, are having those individual letter sounds. So you have to fast track the individual letter sounds in order to power up the secrets. Secrets are instant. The minute you tell this, kids have it, it's theirs. Letter sounds, the individual letters, that Better Alphabet that I'm going to show you, that takes 2 weeks to 2 months. It does fast track. We're using muscle memory to get around lack of processing capability because we don't have a year to wait. We're going to take backdoor tracks to get there, but it actually takes longer to teach those individual letters than it does to just toss out a secret. And they are equally important. So don't look at this as, oh, it's a second grade skill. It's a story. It's just a story. And it's one she already knows. That's where we cheat. Now, very quickly, see it, say it, do it. I'm going to add feel it to the list because as teachers, we've all heard, and for parents that are joining us, welcome, first of all, because I know you're teachers now, so congratulations. Multisensory instruction, multisensory learning, at the root, all it means is engaging as many modalities, looking at learning from as many angles as possible, because the more angles we can give kids, the more doors we're providing them to get in. And certainly, you know, kids are multi-processors, so they process through all of these channels simultaneously. But there's an addition to the three that as teachers we're used to hearing, which is see it, say it, do it, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, feel it. Feeling-based learning. Mary Helen Immordino Yang is a Harvard neuroscientist, and the thrust of her work is on feeling-based learning, finding ways to attach social and emotional connections to otherwise completely abstract and isolated academic skill content. Now, most of her work is focused on middle to high school, algebra, table of elements in science, etc. But for us at the early grades, phonics is our algebra. Phonics is our chemistry. Phonics is our table of elements. It's abstract letter sound symbols that to kids at the earliest grade levels seemingly make no sense. There are great ways that you can look at the morphology of our language and see how things are what they are, and then organize and classify phonic sounds and skills into a more understandable kind of logical progression. But for kids who have their shoe in their mouth and are eating the carpet, you know, they're not your prime audience to make good sense of what otherwise are these abstract skills. So see it, say it, do it, feel it. And I think that that last little girl demonstrated that beautifully. Now, the vowels are key, and I want to hit them because in order to show you the Better Alphabet song, which is coming up, you have to be able to grab these vowel sounds. And the Better Alphabet, as I started to mention, is muscle memory. It's body intelligence. We're using and tapping into what's most reliable for our earliest grade learners, which is not higher level processing, abstract sound skill connection, but it's body intelligence, muscle memory, lips, tongue, teeth. So we're going to put it there. The problem is we can't do that with the vowels. B or t or k can sit easily in the muscle memory and be pulled easily with muscle memory, not mainly because there's not enough muscle variance, or you know, these are either lip position or tongue position shifts that give you these vowel sounds, and it's such a minute muscle change or mouth shape. The sounds are so nebulous that the muscles are just, you know, when I talk about muscle memory, I'm talking about like a tennis swing. There's not enough of a muscle engagement between these sounds for you to be able to rely on using that as a pack home to get them. So they need another way. And the way that is easiest with these vowels are secrets. So the vowels have secrets. The vowels are the only letters that are by themselves, because remember I said secrets are when letters come together and don't do what they should. That's where we're going to use that brain-based pinpoint of secrets. But the vowels do have secrets. And I tell kids, you need to know about these guys because it's important that, you know, you understand, especially if we're in the classroom, which now we're not. But if we are, I tell them we got superheroes that live in this classroom. And I think it's only fair that you know they're here, because if you had superheroes here every day, I think you need to know who they are so you can recognize them and know that sometimes they're going to do things that other letters just can't do. So you're going to find them doing things that are extraordinary. Now, these superheroes that we have in our classroom, they are the superhero vowels, and they have a power that no other letter in the whole alphabet has. They can say their name. Now, this is where I'd like to make my screen big, but I'm afraid if I do, I won't be able to put it back. So hopefully you can see me well down here. Because these letters have these superpowers, these vowels that no other letter in the alphabet has, and they have this power to say their name, they are the envy of all the other letters. So just like real world superheroes, they have to kind of disguise themselves so that no one knows who they are, or else they'll be seen and spotted, and kind of everybody will constantly want to, you know, talk to them and be with them, and they have to just kind of hide and not be seen. So they have these little disguises. They're the short and lazy disguises where they can kind of duck down and not be noticed. So for example, you likes to pretend that he is not paying attention in class. So he likes to sit in the back of the room and he'll wait for the teacher to call on him. And every time she calls on him, you know what he'll do? He'll pretend he's not paying attention. And he'll go, and that's the sound he makes. And every time he makes it, everybody assumes, well, that couldn't be superhero you. I mean, he looks like superhero you, but it couldn't be because he never even pays attention. He doesn't even know what the teacher's talking about. So it's a great disguise because every time he makes that short and lazy sound, nobody knows that he's actually superhero you. E likes to pretend she's a little old lady, and so what she'll do is she puts on some big glasses and she has a big bun in her head, and she'll walk around and pretend she can't hear, and she'll go, what'd you say, and she'll even interrupt people's conversations on purpose just to make sure that no one suspects that she's actually superhero E, because obviously they look a lot alike. So she has to really make sure that they don't suspect that that sweet little old lady could possibly be superhero E. O, he goes to the doctor all the time, and he isn't really sick, but he is afraid that he might get sick, and he knows as a superhero he can't afford it. So he'll go to the doctor constantly, but he doesn't want to touch anything when he's there because he knows that it's you know, it's more dangerous, kind of like today, it's more dangerous to go to the doctor when you're not that sick because you risk getting even sicker from people who are sick. So when he goes to the doctor, he has a rule. He never touches anything at the doctor's office, but he's especially worried about the stick that the doctor wants to use to check his throat. So he'll never let his lips, tongue, or teeth touch that stick, ever. So every time the doctor checks his throat, he'll go, he'll go, but he makes sure to keep his lips, tongue, and teeth really far away from that stick because he's not totally sure the doctor always remembers to throw it away in between patients. So just to be sure, he won't let his lips, tongue, or teeth touch that stick. Now, the reason that's so important is if kids say, and then they just relax their jaw muscles at all, even a little bit, they'll get, and kids will relax their jaw muscles because they have weak articulation capability at the early grades. So if there is a more comfortable sound for kids to fall into, they will. And that means you're risking the sound turning into Speech pathologists go through the front door, the higher level processing center, to fine tune the sound. They say things like, keep your bottom jaw down, make your mouth look like an O, keep your tongue straight against the back bottom teeth, blah, blah, or make it in words like hot and caught, not in words like cut or hut. Kids that are 4, 5, 6 often hear blah, 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 when we're saying things that aren't meaningful to them. If you simply tell them that this stick could have been in the mouth of the kid that just threw up all over the floor, you'll get the perfect short O sound every single time with no danger of it collapsing to because they don't want to touch the yucky stick. That's what's meaningful to them. That's a social and emotional connection that they can get that will immediately shift the focus of the sound. So we get this instant access to a sound that otherwise developmentally would be pretty tricky for them to hone into and find. Short I, if you put a finger here and a finger here and you keep your lips close together and you turn sideways, if you do it right, your mouth will look like a capital I. See? Now that's really important. He does this because his suit is getting a little hard to zip up. So he's found that this exercise works really well to keep him trim. But in order to get the benefits, he's got to turn all the way to the side, and he knows he's doing it right if his mouth looks like a capital I. So that's easy and quick for kids to have a way to make sure that they are saying and not which is I's worst enemy. And it is very difficult for kids, by the way, out of the blue in a vacuum to go because it's a very tight, muscular, engaged sound. But if their fingers can do the work that their mouth muscles can't by holding the apples of the cheek back, and then they know they have to keep their lips straight as a stick to look like the capital I, then they have a way to get there even if they're a little bit weak developmentally with the mouth muscles, which most kids are. So it's so much fun when we can get around something they shouldn't be able to do by cheating, just by cheating. A has heard about O's adventures at the doctor, and he doesn't want any part of it. So he eats an apple a day because he's heard through the grapevine that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And the perfect short A sound is the moment before you bite into an apple. So if you're trying to capture that sound, all you need to do, because kids often want to go and that's a normal sound that you'll see kids make. If you give them a real apple, you get a perfect short A position the moment before the bite. Because the moment before the bite, they get the lift from the top up, which you need because is dropping down. Can't do that if you have a real apple. It also pulls the tongue back and it spreads it wide at the inside back teeth. So all of the really tricky things about explaining the proper position for a short A take care of themselves when you simply prepare to bite into an apple. You may need a real apple because if you fake bite, you still can go So a real apple gives kids really no choice but to visually go up, over, and around to take the bite. And if you stop them just before their teeth crunch in and say, freeze, make the sound, then as their mouth is stuck in that position and they haven't touched the apple yet, the perfectly set up short A is right there and ready for the taking. So that's a quick trick. And by the way, that little girl you see at the top, I'm not going to play that for time's sake. You will be able to on your download, but she is the 4-year-old pre-K sister who got jealous that her mom tweeted her kindergarten sister with the so she insisted the next night on telling a secret that she learned, and this was the tweet that I was tagged in the following night. So it's really cute. She's telling the short A secret and also even tossing out an AR secret, which is, was a real surprise. Oh, there's this. I'm going to skip it. You can watch it later. Now, this is a tweet that I wanted to share because it was from a kindergarten teacher, and I think it sums up why the vowels, it really sums up the message I think I said at the beginning, which is the need for thinking about why are we doing what we're doing? Where is it going to? How does it fit into the biggest picture of the game here, which is getting kids to have what they need to start making sense of text. You can call that reading, or you can just call that seeing how what they do know fits into text that's all around them. I think that's similar to that is reading in a nutshell, but reading is a fluid term that means different things at different grade levels, as of course everybody here would know, because we have a very open interpretation of what reading and writing looks like for kids at our levels. Now, I love this tweet. This teacher said, now note the date, April 19th, that's important. We had a few superhero vowels pay us a visit this week. Since we already knew the vowel secrets, we've known that vowels had more than one sound since our first week of school. So we didn't have to wait until this week in our phonics program to find out. But it was a fun review. That says so much. First of all, I can't believe that it's April 19th and the phonics program or the reading series or whatever she's using, and this is normal, by the way, this isn't just a strange anomaly, this is typical, has only taught one sound for vowels yet. You know, there are two sounds. Vowels can be long or they can be short. There's two possible things vowels can do. Every single word in our language has a vowel or more. It's got to live one or more vowels. If you don't know both sounds that vowels can make, you're literally tying one hand behind your back all the way through April 19th. But I love that she didn't see this as an interruption. Secrets are not a program. Programs don't teach kids. Teachers teach kids. Parents teach kids. We teach kids. Programs just give them a place to play with their reading and their writing muscles. But the program doesn't have to dictate what kids get when they get it. If we can give them something that lets them milk more value out of the program, that's always the goal of the game. So I loved the idea that she just took it in stride and thought, well, it's still a fun review. And, you know, we've gotten, what, 9 months, 8 months out of actually using the knowledge that vowels have two ways to go. They can go long or they can go short, and we've owned both since the first week of school. Why have they owned both since the first week of school? Because she taught it in this story, and it was in a story that already connected with and made sense with what kids already knew. And that powers them up tremendously, because most programs will teach vowels last, and understandably so if you're going through the front door, because they are the hardest for kids to auditorily process, discriminate, and articulate. So they are taught last because they are the hardest. But they don't need to be taught last if you can bypass those developmental landmines and sneak them right through the back door. Then you can give kids what's most needed first. Since you can't read or write a single word without the vowels, those are a priority. Those can't wait. They can't wait till April 19th. They need them. They need them now. They need them first and foremost. So they're the first thing I teach on the first day of pre-K as a story. I'm not teaching vowels. I'm just telling a story. There's just a little golden vowel nugget buried inside for kids who at some point down the road are going to go, oh, that's that. And in the meantime, it's just a story. Now, this little guy I need to tell you about, because this is also in our Better Alphabet song, which I'm going to be sharing with you in just a couple seconds. Sneaky Y got mad. He found out about the superheroes, and he found out that they had a power that no other letter has, and they could say their name, and he hates his sound. He thinks yet is the worst sound ever. So he was angry when he found out that there were other letters that had other options. So what he did is he snuck into the closets of Superhero E and Superhero I, and he took one of each of their capes, which is where their powers lie. So now when he's at the end of a word and he doesn't think anyone can see him, he'll always be wearing either his E or his I cape so that he can use their powers to make their sound, like mommy, daddy, candy, sky, July, bye. When he's at the beginning of a word, though, he does just what he's supposed to. Yeah, yeah, yellow, yes, you, yak, yeah, yeah, yeah. Only when he's at the end will he be sneaky. Now, you find me a pre-K kid who doesn't know that it's better to be sneaky at the end of the line than at the beginning. When kids are in pre-K and they get to be the line leader, they look like this. They look like an angel. They're perfect. No matter what they do in the classroom, when they are the line leader, and this probably goes all the way up to 5th grade, they transform into a perfect angel of behavior. When, however, some kids are allowed to be at the back of the line, totally different story. Everybody is more likely to do something they're not supposed to do when all eyes are not on them. And that's exactly that social emotional understanding that kind of acts as a compass for decision making. We're using that already existing understanding of where, you know, if I'm going to smack Susie over the head, I'm not going to do it when I'm the line leader. I'm going to do it when no one can see me and I'm back there and I'm the caboose. Now, obviously, you wouldn't use that to teach your kids, but they already know this. So if they can lump Y into that same framework of understanding, now they can make decisions about words they've never even seen before when they see the Y in it. And what that does, even if they don't understand all of that to the degree, and they will, but just for now, if you're thinking, oh, they wouldn't get that, it just sets the stage for them to understand that sometimes letters don't do what they should, but just because there's a secret, a grown-up reading secret that you don't know yet, or that you know, but maybe they don't fully understand yet. It keeps things that you are teaching credible, because you've already set the foundation for the fact that sometimes letters won't do what they should, but it just means there's a secret I haven't told you because it's too big. It's like a huge grown-up reading and writing secret. As a matter of fact, there's some secrets that if I tell you before your brain's ready for it, your brain could explode. Yeah, now I don't want that to happen, so I got to really make sure you're ready for it. But you know, I really love the behavior that I saw you, you know, had in art. So I don't know, maybe you are ready for it. Maybe I will tell you the secret that's in this word that you said you couldn't read. So there's all kind of little games that you can play to really up the ante with it. But again, kids will see the letter Y all over that calendar. So if you are going to talk about the calendar and you want kids to believe you when you say Y says yeah, you have to give yourself an out for why it never actually is. Otherwise, you're discounting what you said over here every time you go over there. And we work way too hard to not get the bang for the buck out of what we're saying over here. So if you want to keep that credible, keep that reliable, and keep kids thinking it actually works, you have to give the brain an if not, then this, here's why. Even if they're not ready to use the if not, then this, here's why yet. So it will shift everything about how you're kind of making your way through these. Now, if you were wondering about words like day, play, or they, that is not sneaky Y, that is EY, AY, and that's part of where we're gonna head tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm gonna talk more about secrets in terms of this, you know, I'm going to focus more on the secrets than on individual letter sounds, and I won't be demonstrating the better alphabet. But I will just tell you, and tomorrow I'll play this little video. I'm not going to do it now. But EY, AY are just too cool. They're like Fonzie, so they always stick up their thumbs and go, A, and that's the sound they make. And this is Fonzie. He's actually a kindergarten teacher. And tomorrow, or in your download packet, you can watch his video where he demonstrates Fonzie-like coolness. But this helps to explain words where it's not sneaky Y, it's EY, AY. Now, the more tools kids can bring to the table, the more value they can take away. So if your screen is like mine and you have your slider on the bottom, which in retrospect was not a smart thing, I should have put it on the side. But what this little girl in TK wrote is my vocation house. So she's able to put together and take apart these patterns that are these secret patterns in the same way she's able to take apart and put together individual letters. It's just an extension of the alphabet. It's just a fluid way to open access, like a buffet, to more sounds, more symbols that you can pull from, eat from, visit, notice, see, use throughout the entire day. This is not just captured in your reading block. Text is everywhere. Words are everywhere. Every math problem that kids have to figure out and see the word circle, or every lunchroom menu, or every road sign, or their name tags, or the birthday board, or the calendar. Everywhere there is text, there are secrets, meaning, letters coming together and making sounds that kids wouldn't expect. So every opportunity throughout the day becomes an opportunity to read. Every time kids are with text, they're extending that engagement, that reading lesson that you're kind of trying to bolster in your one block that then just explodes all day long. Now here is where we're going to hit this song. Music is really interesting because when you look at brain science and then you look at music and see how it hits and how it sits in a learning perspective, we've got a couple different ways we can use it. I'm going to actually show you 2 ways to use music today. The first way is what I promised at the beginning, which was the better alphabet. The better alphabet is going to target muscle memory, body intelligence, which for many learners, specifically early grade learners, as well as often ELL learners or kids that have some learning glitches or delays, oftentimes their body intelligence exceeds their higher level processing capability for many learners. So because of that, we want to take our most accessible door in, and that for us, when it comes to these individual letters and sounds, is going to be body intelligence. If you're trying to teach individual letters and sounds in kindergarten and you're going through the front door where you're showing them an abstract symbol, trying to get them to remember the sound, and it's not connected to anything, you could potentially take an entire year and still have kids struggle and forget half of them over the summer. We don't have that time. We can't use something that's so disconnected for that long without having something to connect it with to make sense. So we've got to fast track it, or if it's of no value. And in order to do that in a reliable way, music is our absolute best bet. It's not because it's fun, although it is, it's because we're actually able to target this body intelligence and pull it into the fold to help anchor these sound skills. Now that's just the first way we're going to use music. I'm going to show you another way at the end. But so for this, we're going to train the lips, tongue, and teeth to take in the letter sounds so that we don't have to teach them. And that's really important. So we're giving letter sounds, we're not teaching them. Now I'm gonna show you a couple examples and I'm gonna let a class take over and actually sing it. But this is called the Better Alphabet. You will have download links to it in your download packet that I showed you at the beginning. And when you download the packet, you will see this explained by me in a vlog. You'll see some posts that link to it, and then you'll see some different classes do it. The two things you wanna make sure you have in place when you're doing this with your kids are eye glue and muscle mouth. They have to see what they sing and sing what they see. That's why eye glue is so important. They have to see the letter as they're making the sound. They also have to really, really, really work their lips, tongue, and teeth because that's what's gonna hold these sound skills. It's not gonna be up here, it's gonna be in here. But if they're singing and they're not looking at what they are, if they're not looking at the letters, which sounds they're singing, then they'll know all the sounds, but they won't know what letters they go with. So these are both equally important. They have to see the letter while they sing the sound. So I just like to sum that up by saying, see what you sing and sing what you see. Keep your eyes glued to my finger. And then my finger is tracking above my board the alphabet letters as we are singing them. And if your alphabet trait, I have something on Instagram called Elephants in Your Alphabet. It's on my IG stories. I think it's saved in, it's on IGTV. Check it out because you can thwart this if your alphabet train is crazy. And by crazy, I mean like, if you have Umber the Umberbird on your U card, but Umber the Umberbird looks like a bluebird. There's a lot of very strange things, or an X-ray or a xylophone on your X. There's some strange things going on with publishers creating these alphabet charts, so you want to make sure what you're pointing to actually does give the most likely sound for the letter, and preferably the next most likely sound as well. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how this looks. I'm just going to do a couple letter sounds, and then I'm going to let a pre-K class take over, and I'll give you one thing to be aware of as they start to take over, because there's one thing they do that's not good that I just want to make sure you don't emulate with your kids. But so let's say I'm pointing to an A, and let's say I'm showing, let's say on my A card, because I actually made some anchors for teachers who do have some crazy ones in their classroom, but if yours are good, you can use the ones you've got. So let's say there's an apple and an ape, because that shows both sounds they can make. A says ah, 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 but it can also say a, 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 a. B says b, 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 and C says k, 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 but it can also say s, 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 s. Now, notice a couple things that just happened. When I said A says ah, 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 but it can also say a, 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 I made both sounds for the vowel because the vowel has two sounds. For B, that was easy. You know, balloons, a boy, whatever you have that's B sound, that's easy. C, I said k and s because C, like G, has two sounds it can make, a soft and a hard sound. Most likely comes out first, and that's k. So on my cards, on the Better Alphabet cards, you will see that there's I think it's a cat and a circus, so that kids have access to both sounds as you're pointing to both sounds. For G, I don't remember what, I think it's a garden and a G, I don't even know what the G other one is. But anyway, when there's two sounds, kids need to have access to both visually, and then you want to sing most likely first. So what we're doing is we're putting this into the lips, tongue, and teeth. For Y, because it's got three sounds, Y says y, 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 but it can also say E or I or E or I or E. So we're hitting all three sounds. Now I'm going to play a pre-K class on the next clip, and they're going to be doing this. Just know when you watch them, they go a little crazy. There was a lot of research showing that we should cut sounds off, and not have this sound come out like after b, for example. It should just be b, and that's true. However, they've reversed, and by they, I mean ILA has shifted position a bit because of cutting off the sound so abruptly with b, is causing an issue for blending, in that kids aren't able to blend through to the next vowel sound. So you do not want to, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's a middle ground here. You don't need to be extreme with cutting off the sound after a voice consonant, but you also don't want to do what you're gonna see this class do a bit of, which is kind of suck on that sound a little bit. That's a very exaggerated shadow schwa, which is the Don't do that. I'm showing you this just to show the ease with which and the automaticity with which they can pull all these sounds. but not so that you can emulate the that they do really hit hard as they're singing. So I'm going to play a bit of this right now. And again, these are pre-K kids. Watch how their eyes are glued to what the teacher is clearly pointing to. You can't see the teacher, she's off screen, but watch how focused they are during this. And also watch how crazy they look at the beginning, because that's how well the teacher hammered home the idea of eye glue and muscle mouth. They turn it from like little crazy pre-K kids into like West Point cadets with eye glue, muscle mouth, and then they're back to looking kind of like crazy pre-K. And I didn't tell you, I do an eye glue and a muscle mouth award. I do it Boys Against Girls so that I can really rev up this stranger, more focused attention that is otherwise a little tricky to get from early grade kids.
Very good. A says you also say B says blah 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 blah. C says ha 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 ha. You also say D says da 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 da. E says
Now, if you're wondering why they weren't doing a lot of motions other than just for the vowels and for Y, it's because if they do, like, you know, for alligator, or this or that, it cuts the connection of see what you say and say what you sing. In other words, the best, actually the most critical thing here is that kids have their eyes glued to the symbol as their mouth is making the sound. And if I'm doing, you know, apple, alligator, well, Johnny, my friend, looks like a really fun, cool alligator, so guess where my eyes are gonna go instead of on the symbol that is the A. So this isn't about just make it cutesy, it's really, it's like an operation. It's like letter sound fast track operation. Yeah, the kids still love to do it, but only when we need the cue or the motion for capturing the sound, like those are the ones that require this trigger in order to get the sound to come out. The other ones are all in lips, tongue, and teeth, and what's most critical there is that we have that connection with sound, symbol to sound, sound to symbol. Now, that's not to say in any other situation, movement's not key. Obviously, that's one more angle for learning, and we said see it, say it, do it. So normally that is the goal, just not with that particular use of music because of what we're actually accomplishing with it, doing for. Now, the other piece of music, and I have literally 2 more minutes to show this part to you. So everything else that you'll see as you access some of the links in your download are using music to build automaticity, which means not muscle memory, not repetitious, always the same, but actually the opposite. Flip it, flop it, twist it, turn it, do it 1,000 ways to Sunday. Raise the bar, but use music to diffuse the anxiety so kids are comfortable taking some leaps and playing and deepening the ownership of these skills from just barely on the tip of their tongue to, I got this. And that's what we want when they go to read and write. We want their focus to be on the story they want to tell or what the character's thinking in the book that they're reading. We don't want their focus to be on what sound do these letters make? What's that phonics pattern? So the deeper the ownership, the more readers can write and writers can do with the code what it's for, which is to actually tell stories and enjoy, you know, getting information in text, you know, whether it's fun story-based information or actual, you know, learning. We don't read and write for letter sound mastery. Letter sound mastery is a means to an end as a reader and writer. So we want that off the plate. We want that deep in the gut and no longer on the radar. And the best way to get that to happen is music. So I am going to show you really, really quickly this group doing what is the next level up from that better alphabet. It's called the letter runs. And it takes about 30 seconds. You're going to see it Jedi style. You could do it to Happy Birthday, Star Spangled Banner. But it's see symbol, say the sound. It's the baby step to things that you'll see on links after. It's after this slide in your download. You'll see links to ways you can play with music in every way to Sunday when it comes to letters and sounds. So I'll just let a couple seconds of this play to give you the idea.
All right, here we go. The Better Alphabet song to what to? Yeah.
And it's not the better alphabet, it's letter runs. She misspoke.
Style. All right, here we go. Ready?
A, abacus, E, F, the drum. I is a couple. O, aqua, you
Okay, so I think you got the idea of that, and that's just another fun way to kind of raise the bar, deepen the ownership, deepen the ownership. And there are Beethoven blends, apples and bananas, all kinds of other ways that you can, in a fun way, play with moving sound to symbol, symbol to sound, and just keep it fun, keep it light, but keep that bar going up higher and higher so that when the text is in their hands, it's the last thing they're thinking about, not the first. So I'm going to stop there and simply tell you that you are welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. Please make sure if you join late that you do download the packet that's going to have everything that you saw in this so that you can start kind of exploring and using some of these things with your class, even during at-home learning. And I have tried to put into a recent post that you will see if you go to the latest blog. Well, actually, I take that back. If you subscribe here, I am making things. I've made one for parents and I'm making one for teachers. It's got things that they can take to make easier what you're going to be holding in your hand and for parents to work without that as you start to play with these strategies. And I'm making another one for teachers that's got, again, pieces that they can use to share in this remote learning that's specific to giving them or arming them with more and more of the code. So the parent one's already out, the teacher one's coming this weekend, and I send them out in these links through this box that if you click on, you'll be able to not just connect with me, but to get it. And I'll resend the parent one probably this weekend, along with the teachers at the end. So thank you so much. I'm sorry I went so quickly, but I'll be picking up where I left off today in tomorrow's session. So thank you, Tammy, for having me.
Thank you, Katie. And we have time for one question if you would like to take it.
I'm surprised I have a question.
Yeah, you have a question? Yes,
no, I'm sorry.
course.
And I can stay and answer any questions you want. I apologize. I know I talked through my question time, so.
That's okay. We can do one before we close it out. As we teach the better alphabet, letter alphabet, would we teach it all at the same time or would you teach it in segments?
No, all at the same time. Brain's a multiprocessor. Think of it like a puzzle. You can't put a puzzle together if you've only got 5 pieces of it because you don't have any way to see the picture. You have to be able to see how things come together, and especially with the Better Alphabet song because that's going to be locked into place with muscle memory. So it's literally like saying, well, should I sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in pieces? Like, should I just teach one word of the song at a time? Or should I actually teach the whole song? You're not really teaching, and that's the biggest thing to wrap our head around, I think, as teachers, is you're giving. Songs give, stories give, emotions give. You don't have to teach someone to feel sad or to feel happy or to get excited. So at most base level, these are just stories, these are just songs. The developmental readiness dictates who's gonna get what's really going on when. And that's not up to us to be in control of. We want it to be fluid, and we want it to be a buffet that kids come to on their own because they see the connections. All we want to do is offer it up through songs, through stories, through drama, through play. It's all play. And then let kids make of it what they're ready to based on where they are developmentally to see what we're showing them with text and how all of this starts to relate. So never be afraid to sing a song. Never be afraid to tell a story. Ever, ever.